الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله أما بعد رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. Alhamdulillah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you and I immense favors as servants of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Him being the creator and us being the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Us being ultimately dependent on Allah. And Allah being completely independent of you and I. For Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put us in the position that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala puts us in this life, and creating this reality of the hereafter for you and I to experience in the hereafter. Right? This is an immense mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We heard about someone being ill just a few minutes ago. We all realize this reality of life, right? Health and sickness, life and death is just what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala limited to this world. And ultimately in the hereafter, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala left eternity. There is no concept of sickness, there's no concept of death for you and I to experience. And understand that reality. Right? We live a short life here, and then ultimately in the hereafter, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us limitless life and limitless bounties of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that the comparison of the bounties of Allah in this world pale in comparison to the ones in the hereafter. So there's an immense mercy that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us just in existence, in life. And then moreover, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala creates us as believers. Right? Allah has blessed you and I as believers. And not only that, but then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives believers opportunity. Right? Opportunity to earn privileges, reward, and everlasting reward in the hereafter. And for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us those opportunities is also a huge blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, built on the faith that we possess. Right? Iman that we possess. If I was to do something that was good, but I didn't possess Iman, we didn't possess faith, then it would be sort of obsolete. There would be no accountability hereafter. There would be no reason for us to do it in the sense of having privilege and reward and something in the hereafter. But the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us the greatest blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Iman, in belief, and then on top of that, Allah giving us opportunity, right? And health in opportunity, right? Giving us time in opportunity, right? Giving us those times, right? Being able to come to the masjid on a Thursday night, that opportunity from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. These are opportunities, these are blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so, one of the expectations of the servants of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in opportunity is to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? That's why He says in the Quran that all jinn and man have only been created for worship of Allah. We have been created ultimately for the objective of worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But there are moments that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allows us to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through things that might not be ritualistic, right? Ibadat, what we call worship, right? Praying salah, siyam, zakat, right? Worshipping, praying, reading Quran. When a person sustains his family, earns a livelihood, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that that's an obligation. That becomes a means of reward. Being kind to one another, being generous to one another, smiling with one another. Rasulullah says that it's an opportunity of charity for one another. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us immense opportunity within our lives, alhamdulillah. And ibadat is a form of direct worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so we take opportunity from those things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us, inshallah. We are in this month of Muharram, right? And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam says that outside of the month of Ramadan, right, the fasts are more beloved inside the month of the Muharram, right? Opportunity in the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are very important in these days, inshallah, right? One form of worship that we may not understand or realize sometimes, right? Sometimes if we're asked by a person that wants to know about Islam, they'll say, what is the form of worship in your religion? They'll say, what? Salah. Right? It's ibadah. The first things that come to mind, right? Fasting, pilgrimage, hajj, right? Zakah, charity, and so on. So recitation of the Quran. We'll highlight and mention those forms of worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they're there. They're worships of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Well, one form of worship that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentions to us in hadith and I really want us to focus on, right? When we talk about opportunity and blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this form of worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala defines that. And ultimately defines worship. And the Prophet ﷺ says in the dua, right? In the hadith, ad-du'a mukhul ibadah. Right? Dua is what? The essence of worship. Dua is the essence of worship. Right? Asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for you and I. Right? It looks like a very, in a sense, selfish worship, right? I'm asking for myself, or asking for my loved ones, or asking for my community, or asking for those that are near and dear, important and significant in my life. I ask for them. So for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to say that that's the essence of worship, right? It's only an opportunity for me to earn not only reward, but benefit myself in that process. Why? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, through the act of worship, makes us realize this relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That I'm ultimately dependent, and He is completely independent. Collectively, individually. Collectively, individually, Allah is completely independent of you and I. But collectively and individually, we're completely dependent on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? When a person makes dua, right, and we're told what we make dua for everything. The prophetic example, the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was what? That he would make dua at every step, before he ate, after he finished eating, before he slept, when he woke up, before even entering the restroom, exiting the restroom. The prophetic life was that he would make dua at every step. Why? Because it makes us realize that relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That I couldn't even pick up this morsel of food. Maybe I could put it in my mouth. Maybe I'd be able to chew it, but I maybe perhaps would not be able to swallow it. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't will so. So when a person makes dua for those blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right, it makes us realize our dependency on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it makes us realize that realization, that dependency on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's why He says it's the essence of worship. It puts us in that perspective of asking something. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says what? The more you ask, right, the more Allah likes it. The more beloved you become to Allah. The better relationship we have with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then He says, he goes on, He says, if you ask for something, I won't reject it. Right? How favorable can Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make this form of worship for you? Right? So in these days, inshallah, on the day of Ashura, as well as throughout our lives, we need to make a habit of making this worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala part of our lives. And there's no prerequisites, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't say like in salah, you have to have wudu, you have to be in a state of purity, tahara, right, to read the Quran and touch the mushaf. Right? When it comes to dua, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, but make it at any stage of your life. Any point, any place, practically you can make dua. In your heart, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, what? I'm closer to you than you're even in your jugular vein. Right? I can hear your whispers, I can hear your screams. Allah can hear anything. The thoughts in my mind, the dua that I read internally, Allah hears them, and then He tells us, I won't reject a dua. Right? There's ways of Allah accepting it. Maybe He delays it, He gives us something better, or He gives us something, or gives us in return what we are asking for. There's ways of acceptance, but it doesn't mean that Allah, as long as it's a permissible, clean dua, Allah says, I will accept it. So this act of worship, inshallah, keep that in mind. And with that, inshallah, just keeping three things in mind when it comes to dua, right? First is to actually do it in our lives, right? Take moments, inshallah, right? You come to the salah, after the salah, taking a few moments to make dua. On a personal level, on individual level with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? It creates that ability to ask Allah. It creates that connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's a very noble worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? Taking moments in our time, in our day, to make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for whatever it may be. That anxiety, that worry, that concern we feel throughout the day, in our life, in our offices, workspaces, with our family, whatever the situation may be. Take that moment to make dua. It's a very powerful form of worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given believers. That we not only earn what we want to the dua, but reward at the same time, right? So the first thing is actually taking out the time. The second is trusting that dua. Right? Trust the dua. Trust Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Anybody can make anything happen for me and you, it's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Trusting that dua. You know, the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, or Ibrahim alayhi salam, Musa alayhi salam, when Musa alayhi salam is pinned against the water, he makes dua. When the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is in battle and he's outnumbered by the mushrikeen, he makes dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? When Ibrahim alayhi salam is being thrown into the fire, they're making dua at these moments. There's ultimate trust at that moment. Right? What level of trust do you think it took for them to make dua at that moment? And trust the dua that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to fulfill His dua. He's going to fulfill His part. Right? We may be incapable, we may have limitations. When it comes to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there's no limitations. The second thing is trusting the dua. The third thing is that I try to remove any obstacles from my dua. Right? Or any obstacles that prevent my dua to reach Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? Where what I mean by that is that anything that is a disobedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that becomes a hindrance. Right? Allah's Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam tells us that the only thing that prevents us is sins, right? Disobedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will become obstacles in the way of a person his dua being accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? So remove any obstacles. If there's anything I realize to be an obstacle, a prevention from my dua being accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I try to remove that from the way. I don't want any obstacles between my dua. That's what Rasulullah says, a fasting person's dua is the fastest accepted, right? Person that's in a difficult situation, a person that's being oppressed. Why? Because they have very limited obstacles at that moment. Why? They're being oppressed. They're fasting at that time. Rarely does a person commit anything wrong in the stage of fasting, right? So it becomes a preventative measure, right? So we remove any obstacles from our du'as that could be preventing it. There's a story mentioned at the time of Musa alayhi salam. Right? There was a drought, a heavy drought, a famine. And people were suffering, so they came to the Prophet, right, Musa alayhi salam. So Musa alayhi salam, please make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Our children are suffering, our animals are suffering. Can you make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Right, for the rain to come. So Musa alayhi salam, what does he do? He gathers people. Right? It mentions, a couple thousand people gathered, and he gathers them, and he makes dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah, alleviate this pain, this difficulty, this hardship on my people. So Musa alayhi salam makes dua, and nothing happens. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "O Musa, there is a person in that gathering that you've gathered that has disobeyed me for the last 40 years. Right? He's disobeyed me for the last 40 years. Ask that person to remove himself from that gathering. Because of that individual, I prevented the rain." So Musa alayhi salam goes back and he says what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asked him to convey. So this person sitting in that gathering, right? He hears this announcement by Musa alayhi salam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asks this person. Now this person says, there's all these people are gathered, the whole community is here. If I get up and I remove myself from that group, right, everybody will notice me. They will see me. They will know I was the reason Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is putting them through this pain and agony. Oh Allah. And he covers his feet. The books of Tafsir, they mention that he covers his face and he makes dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He says, "Oh Allah, please don't embarrass me this way. I've sinned for 40 years, but I ask for forgiveness from all those sins. I will never repeat them. But please don't embarrass me in this manner that I have to get up and go." And so he weeps and he cries to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the rain begins falling. So Musa alayhi salam, he's surprised. He says, "Ya Allah, what happened? You asked me to ask someone to remove themselves, and I got not a single person got up. Yet rain came. I didn't even lift my hands to dua, yet rain came." What? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "Oh Musa, that person, because of whom I held back the rain, because of his forgiveness, because he removed all the obstacles in his dua, I brought the rain back. There's no reason for you, O my Prophet, to raise your hands." So Musa alayhi salam says, "Oh Allah, can you tell me who this person is? Can you tell me who this person is?" Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "Oh Musa, I've hidden his sins for the last 40 years. What makes you think I'm going to expose them?" Right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us this form of worship called dua. Right? Raising our hands. There's this element of etiquette that we beautify our salah. Rasulullah used to raise his hand. He would ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in a very humble manner. Right? We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as much as we can. Right? For ourselves, our loved ones, our communities, our ummah. Those that are going through hardship. Rasulullah says, when we make dua for those that are absent, right, Allah accepts that dua quickly, right? Beautify our dua and make dua as often as possible. So there's no prerequisites, right? There's no hindrances, there's no preventions, there's no reason, there's no preparation for the dua, right? We can sit at any moment Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us when we make dua, and it builds this nearly, this connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The more we raise our hands, the more we make that habit of making dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, inshallah, and we become closer, nearer and dearer, and inshallah Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala records that as a form of worship for you and I, and we realize our position in regards to Allah, in relationship with Allah. Complete dependency and complete dependency from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Inshallah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept all our pure du'as, inshallah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to have moments that we connect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through our du'as and become near and dear and beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and accept all our prayers, inshallah, for those that are present, those that are absent, inshallah, those that are sick, those that are going through difficulty and hardship, inshallah. All the du'as that we make on behalf of ourselves, our loved ones and others, inshallah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept them, inshallah, and give us the ability to build our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in du'as, inshallah. Jazakumullah khair wa akhudna wa alhamdulillah wa